Welcome back, everybody. Libyan leader Muammar al-Gaddafi is rejecting a ceasefire that was proposed by the rebels, instead stepping up efforts to push them out of opposition-held cities. The rebels' main goal is to kick Gaddafi out of power. But how likely is that with the Libyan leader standing strong? Joining me now, national security expert Mike Barrett, a former senior analyst for the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. Good to see you. Thank you so much for being here.
Hi, Jamie.
I understand that the U.S. has pulled back on airstrikes, and I'm curious, what is the bar for us to either reinstate them or change our goal, which is just to protect civilians and not necessarily to take Gaddafi out?
Well, I think you've really gotten right to the heart of the issue. I mean, we have an inherently self-contradictory strategy, which is that essentially Gaddafi's got to go. That's the reality. And yet we're only saying that we're only willing to go as far as the UN resolution. There were quite a few of us who sort of said, well, you know, unless you're willing to really go in, don't go in. But the fact is we've gone in now, and since we're there, we've got to see this through to the end. I think right now our strategy is really one of hope. We're just kind of hoping that either those around him will desert him, which seems increasingly unlikely, or that the rebels will stand up and learn how to fight overnight miraculously, which seems unlikely, or frankly that we, the Western powers, are going to end up having to go in a more serious and dedicated fashion.
Do you believe reports that Gaddafi has sent an envoy to the UK to examine potential exit strategies for himself?
Well, I don't think that he's sincere in doing it. I mean, you see the same thing with North Korea, Iran, any number of countries. I mean, what they're doing is they're playing the game of delaying, because the reality is they know that time is on their side. So if you're Gaddafi right now, you know, he's got a professional military force and time is on his side. Look at what's happened in just the last week, since Monday night when the president came on TV and things were looking like they were in the rebels' favor, and here we are 6 days later. And so I think if you're Gaddafi, you say, you know, this is just a matter of waiting it out and letting his troops and his military bring their force to bear against the rebels.
Mike, you've said that the contradictions in our current policy are becoming clearer by the day. You've been in the White House in situations that maybe aren't necessarily exact, but somewhat similar. Can you take us into the minds of those in the administration and help us understand exactly what the president was saying our fundamental interests are there and why we're doing what we're doing?
Well, I would love to be able to explain the fundamental interest that is there. Unfortunately, as Secretary Gates said last week, this isn't in our fundamental interest. It's an interest that we have, but it's not in our vital national security interest. And there's quite a few of us on the national security side of things that say, therefore, we shouldn't be in there. You know, you don't go to war if you're only willing to pull out a knife. You have to be willing to pull out the guns as well.
So where do we go, Mike? Where do we go from here at this point?
Well, I think, you know, there's really three options, right? You can cut and run, which means you just leave. But that obviously would be, you know, hugely damaging to the U.S. reputation in the world. You can create a stalemate and some partitions and no-fly zones, and then you're going to be stuck like we were in Iraq for 10 years in the inner period between the First and Second Gulf War, and eventually you're still going to have to deal with this guy. Or you can, you know, whether it's the U.S. that does it or some of the other international partners, someone's going to have to start arming and training the rebels. But you're even starting to see this from, you know, some of the more liberal think tank experts out there talking about, look, this will be months, this might even be years. They're starting to sow the seeds for the fact that we're going to be stuck here for quite a while. And again, this is why you don't do it unless it's in your really vital national interest. We don't have the time in the day to worry about this, plus Syria, plus Bahrain, plus Yemen, plus North Korea, all the things happening in Japan, not to mention the slew of American domestic issues that we have going on right now.
That is all on the president's plate, without a doubt. Mike Barrett, your insight really counts, and I really appreciate you being here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, we now